good. It's a triple-double for Bella Earl.
Goes matched up with a speedy guard. Great screen, spin move, layup, he missed it. Williamson fights for the board. His putback is good.
It is the halfway point in the WAC's final women's basketball season, and joining us on the heels of ACU's tight win last night at Moody Coliseum is the voice of the Wildcats, Andy Penney. We're going to kind of take a look at the WAC picture at halfway, kind of take a look back at last night's classic, Tarleton State at ACU, round number 2 of this season, and kind of take a look at where things sit in terms of some of the preseason awards and kind of work from there over the next 40 minutes. So WAC Hoop fans, let's enjoy this conversation. Andy, thanks for joining us on a Wednesday morning here.
Yeah, always good to be with you, Daryl. And here we are at the halfway point. And if the second half is anything like the first half, it's going to be a fun February and March, no doubt.
First things first, that, we're talking off camera, that game last night was absolutely wild. What was it, 15-0 run, an 11-0 run? And kind of talk about what you saw to this ACU team coming off of a really close loss in Cedar City that knocked them out of a share for first.
Yeah, so 68-65, ACU beats Tarleton, a game that was rescheduled because of some Texas weather a few weeks ago. And it makes for a crazy schedule, 3 games in 5 days this week for both the Texans and ACU. But fortunate because of travel, we're able to pull that off on a Tuesday night. And I think both teams are kind of in favor of having games versus practice, I guess. I think the long stretch because of the weather made both teams play really sluggish in Utah last week. Both had 1-1 weeks. And I think a chance to get right back on the floor and go to battle with the in-state rival was fun for both teams. And you mentioned it, both teams were just throwing haymakers. Tarleton State had the 15-0 run in the second quarter. ACU was able to close the gap and get it back to tied by halftime. ACU a big run in the third quarter. Tarleton responds with a big run to start the fourth. And then just down the stretch, Peyton Hull was able to make some plays, finished with 27. And Wildcats were fortunate to get the win, 68-65. And really, I think the bigger thing than just the win is now the series win, as ACU's won each of the first 2. So they have that series tiebreaker with Tarleton State. That could prove big in March.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of storylines that come out of this game. Number one is the maturation of several young players on this ACU roster. Riley Groman's minutes in conference have been growing, and she's been coming through with those minutes. I mean, big shot, I think it was in the fourth quarter there on one of those runs, came up with a couple of decent stops. And to my surprise, I loved that Coleman Bree Davis lineup out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Or that Jasmine Stone Bree Davis smaller lineup when Aaron Woodson picked up her third foul.
Yeah, I had both point guards on the floor. And it was funny, Julie Goodenough in her post-game press conference was highly complimentary of those 2 players, Riley Groman and Jasmine Stone. You don't see it in the points, but their plus-minus, those were the top 2 plus-minuses in the roster last night. And Riley Groman, right at the end of the first half with ACU down 5, hits a 3, steals the inbounds, and then gets an assist to Peyton Hull and eliminates a 5-point deficit in 20 seconds of game time where ACU's down 5 and gets it back even at 35. And then Jasmine Stone, I've never seen that where you have both point guards, Bree Davis and Jasmine Stone, on the floor at the first time. You give up some size and some height when you do that, but Jazz, again, with a high plus-minus, she and Riley Groman, and was able to make some plays. She's coming around as far as being clutch with 3-point shots. And she hit a big one last night that was a momentum changer. And that's huge for this roster, starting to see that depth and maturation as you talk about.
For Tarleton State, I think you're seeing – firstly, I want to talk about Alexis Reinders. This is a kid that played in 6 games, I think, prior to this.
Yeah. Last time was game 6, yeah.
And most of them probably in situations where the minutes really didn't matter. She had to step up last night, and she did in a big way.
She did. Boy, it was a roster last night for Bill Brock, only 10 in uniform. Shadesha Brackens did not play. Engelman did not play. There were a few others not in uniform because of either injury or illness. So only had 10 on the roster. I was really surprised to see Ryanders that early. She came in about the 7 minute mark of the first quarter and then played the rest of the first half, 17 minutes in the first half, because she was making plays. She was reading the defense and taking the shots when they were hers. She was feeding Elodie Luber in the inside with some beautiful lob passes, and because of that, a career high for Ryanders last night with 10 points and really a clutch 10 points. Kept Tarleton in the game, changed some momentum, and just came up with steals, layups. She did it all last night as a freshman.
Gia Adams hit career 1,500 points scored last night. Huge congratulations to her. She's been in the WAC now this is her second season after spending the year at UT Arlington.
Yeah, she's been fun to watch for so long. And it was fun to see her score 1,500. That's such a great milestone. You don't see that very often anymore these days of scores getting to the 1,500 point plateau. So it was fun to be a part of that. She drilled the three from the right wing to hit 1,500, and she's not done. She's got a long way to go.
And then the last thing on the Texan side is I think you can see the maturation of Elodie Luber from the first time ACU and Tarleton met to where we are right now. I mean, and it's scary how much further she has to go.
Yeah, I think she is dangerous. 6'6", first of all, the wingspan to go with that. And her footwork is fantastic. Her hands are fantastic on the catch. And to me, she is maybe the player improved the most over the first 6 weeks of WAC play. If she can get a little bit more touch around the basket, where she can catch high, finish, and then extend her jump shot. If she can get more consistent from that 10 to 12 foot range, man alive, she is going to be dangerous. But a career high last night in what she did. And you could see on the defensive end for Tarleton, ACU had to really adjust their offensive sets because even with dribble penetration being successful, Elodie was there waiting at 6'6". It really alters what teams want to do offensively.
And now we look ahead to a couple of rematches now. And that graphic you guys found on the research, what was it? 7 of 11 second round games have been closer margins than the first time.
Yeah, and you can update that to 8 out of 12 now after last night.
And it doesn't get much closer than what ACU and Utah Valley put up in Orem, a 2-point loss for the Wildcats. That was, however, with Meredith Mays in the lineup. Yeah. Talk about some of the things you're going to be looking for in that Thursday night game. First and foremost for me is how will the Wildcats match up with Hallie Nelson down low?
Yeah, I agree. And whatever Dan Nielsen has, whatever the secret sauce is he has in preparing for ACU, it works. I bet he'll have some more for Thursday night as Utah Valley's won 3 of the last 4 this series. And I agree. I think Utah Valley's personnel and their style of play, just big, physical, presents some challenges for. You've seen that over the course of the last few years. And now Meredith Mays not in the lineup. What does that look like on the inside? And can Nelson be offensively? I think that's a major question because if she can be more effective on the inside, boy, that opens up opportunities for Barcelo on the outside and for them to hit some 3-point shots, which they've done so effectively. So I think really that's the key. I agree with you there is can ACU somehow minimize that difference of size and physicality on the inside?
And then secondly, obviously you got 2 of the top defenses in the country in terms of turnovers forced and steals per game, both in both categories in the national top 25. And if I remember correctly in Orem, ACU had 23 or 25 turnovers in that 2-point loss.
Yeah, they did. As a matter of fact, I think both teams did that day. It was a turnover fest, and it was a day where Utah Valley was just able to hit couple more 3-point shots. And I think that's another storyline is can ACU increase their 3-point percentage to overcome some potential turnovers, or is Utah Valley going to shoot the 3-point shot a little bit better? Because I think the turnovers will be there. The defenses are too good for both teams.
And then obviously flashing forward to the matchup that a lot of folks in the mid-major world have their eyes on Saturday afternoon. And Moody, you guys will have the call on ACU TV. CBU at ACU round number 2. Wildcats won round number 1 by 12, although CBU whittled a 21-point lead down to 6 late in the fourth quarter, had an opportunity there to cut it to 4. Just kind of talk about some of the matchups you're looking forward to in that one. First and foremost, again, I have to go into the paint. How will ACU match up against Emma Johansson and Grace Schmidt with Mays out of the lineup? A lot is going to fall on Amy Flippen and Emma Troxel.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I love the matchup between CBU and ACU. I think their styles of play are very similar, and it's an exciting brand of basketball. There's two teams that love to get up the floor. They want to score in the primary break. They want to get to the rim, and if they can't, they've got shooters all over the floor that can hit the three-point shot, which makes this a fun game. It's 110 miles an hour. Everybody's hair's on fire. I've seen this game in the 90s before. We did that 2 years ago here in Abilene, which makes it really, really fun. And the road team has won each of the last 3 in this series as well. And really, if you look at that game in Riverside, CBU didn't shoot the three-point shot very well at all, and ACU was just able to pound the paint with dribble penetration. I think that was really the main difference. I agree with you. I think Johansson and Smith on the inside, how many touches can Emma and Grace get on the inside and try to finish around the rim and maybe some half-court sets, which isn't necessarily CBU style. Again, they play a lot of 5 out and like to shoot the 3. But I think, that size advantage could play big. I'll give a lot of credit, though, to Emma Troxel, who's, she's playing at 6 foot. We saw it last night playing the 5 position versus Lou Bear at 6'6", just how physical she is. She's really high IQ and obtaining charges. She has 15 charges on the year. So don't discount Emma on the defensive end, but I agree with you. I think that's a big matchup on Saturday.
And I wouldn't be shocked at all if Julie Goodenough throws some double teams when they do get Johansson some post touches.
Yeah, I can see that. You got to be really, really aware of, Barros and Olsen and Lemon out on the inside. You can't really create too much double team down there because you're going to leave a hot shooter open on the 3-point line. So I think that's part of the chess match that we'll see between Coach Goodenough and Coach Olsen is how do you defend the post and what does that do in creating other opportunities for CBU.
You mentioned Lauren Olsen, candidate for Newcomer of the Year. We'll talk about some of the awards later on, but this will be your first time to see her live. But based on the games you've watched, what impresses you about the freshman?
Well, I'll tell you, I just think her handles are great. She can take care of the basketball, especially with her size, her balance as she attacks and absorbs contact has been really good. And then, the percentage of shot that she's shooting, from a shooting and then her ability to finish has been great. I think her teammates have done a great job of getting her in the flow of the offense. And she doesn't look like a typical freshman. She is, taking on a lot of the offensive load for that team. She's been really impressive all the way through. Yeah, it's going to be fun to see her finally in person. Been watching her for the last 3-4 months, and it'd be fun to have her in Abilene finally on Saturday.
You mentioned Felipa Barros. I'm pretty sure she remembers that 3 that went down and out 2 years ago in the double OT.
Yep.
But Barros has become a really good distributor. Running the point, she's in the top 50 nationally for assists per game. Her and Chardonnay Hartley. And I think Cambry Blackham's just outside the top 50 nationally, inside the top 100. So we've got some really good distributors in the WAC.
Yeah, no doubt. And don't remind Barros about that game 2 years ago. That's fuel for the fire for for her. But a great game, and I've been really impressed with how she crashes the board and gets rebounds too. So those are the type of players and plays that you need to be successful. And Barros is one of those that's been making those plays all the way around for CBU. She's been doing it for so long, and the opportunity for her to be here and for this game to have so much implication as far as first, second place are concerned halfway through it's going to be something special on Saturday.
Let's kind of take a look at where things sit at the halfway mark in terms of storylines and awards and so on and so forth. What's been your biggest surprise so far in WAC play? And what's been maybe the biggest disappointment or a team that hasn't met the expectations that we all thought that they would have at the beginning of the year?
I hate to say surprise, but I will give a lot of kudos to Southern Utah and what Tracy Mason is doing. Of course, we gauge so much on what a team does the year before, and then we put it into preseason rankings and such. And it's a Southern Utah team that was picked seventh in the conference to start, and had a great non-conference portion of the schedule. The record indicates that, and they get into conference play and started playing really well. And I didn't know if they could hold the sustainability of that over an 18 game schedule. But here we are at halfway mark, and it's already some quality wins for SUU. They're protecting the home court so well. They get ACU on their home floor with a 3-point win the other day. I think what they're doing and what Avery Urick's doing, Sierra Chambers, and now Brooklyn Feely's coming alive. That's a team that can make a lot of noise over the course of February and into March as well, into the WAC tournament. As far as a team that's down, boy, it's really hard to say. You just look at the records. I think Dan Nielsen would tell you he's disappointed with the losing streak that they just ended and now having to climb uphill. UTA is so young. I think that they're coming. They're an up and comer. They're just young right now. And Utah Tech, man, I feel for JT Gustin. He's had so many injuries to deal with. What feels like the last 3-4 years, he's had to overcome so many injuries. So I hate to call them disappointments. That's just the grind of a schedule and some of the things you have to deal with. But at the end of the day, this is a league. You're talking about a one bid league where everything's on the line in Las Vegas in the middle of March, and I don't count anybody out when we get to that point. Playing somebody for the fourth time, and it's a winner take all. Whoever's going to be hot in Las Vegas in March is going to get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament.
We'll kind of work through the list of the postseason awards that the conference would put out if this was March. We'll start with Player of the Year. Peyton Hull was voted Player of the Year by the coaches in October. I don't think she's done anything to not justify that vote at this juncture. I think she's the Player of the Year as we talk right now on February the 4th.
Well, she's had a good year, and she would tell you she hasn't even peaked this year. Her 3-point percentage is down from where it's been her first 2 years here at ACU, and yet she still leads the conference in scoring. And she's obviously the top of everyone's scouting report. You have to give respect, to Peyton. And, even as difficult as maybe scoring has seemed, at least for us who've seen her every game for 3 years, she's still there again, top of the conference in scoring. She's been 20 plus in 3 of the last 4. I think she's trending in the right direction, and yeah, she's certainly at the top of that conversation for WAC Player of the Year this year.
I think Newcomer of the Year at this point is a 3-person race between Brooklyn Feely, Lauren Olson, and Kira Reynolds from UT Arlington, despite the struggles of the Lady Mavs. And I'm just not sure where to go with that award because I was always taught, when you look at awards like that, it's who has had the biggest impact on winning. And I think all 3 of those freshmen and newcomers have had a big impact on their team's success this year so far.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt about that at all. Of course, we talked about Olson being the freshman, and Feely really wasn't on my radar screen as much until they came to Abilene. Southern Utah was here a few weeks ago, and Feely had a great game here in Abilene despite the loss, and then replicated that again when ACU went to Cedar City. So she's certainly having a great season here in WAC play. Reynolds was all sorts of trouble for ACU when UTA came to Arlington. ACU really did not have an answer for Reynolds. She had a great game that day. Yeah, again, kind of young, and UTA a little bit struggling, but I agree with you. All 3 of those are certainly in the conversation.
Coach of the Year at this point, I think it would be a very, very interesting vote. Let's just put it that way. I think obviously what Tracy Mason and Southern Utah have done, revamping that style, right? Finally getting into the up-tempo style that she's been wanting for the last couple of years, but just they haven't been able to get it because when you're taking the ball out of your own net, you just can't set the break, right?
Right.
And now that they're scoring more, they're able to get what they want, and that's been a huge turnaround. I would argue Sierra Chambers is probably the most improved player in mid-major women's basketball. Jared Olson guiding the Lancers back from a difficult 24-25 and then Julie Goodenough to lose, what she lost in Bella Earl, and now Meredith Mays for the last handful of games.
Yep.
Now 6, I believe it is the number. And to still keep the Wildcats at the top of the conference, I think it's a 3-coach race for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. And, it might come down to just whoever ends up winning the regular season championship that gets that award, because I think all three are very deserving of that for sure with everything. I echo everything that you just said there. And I think it's hard to gauge here at the halfway mark. I think all three are very deserving. I think that you're going to see that play out over the course of the next 6 weeks, especially, as we talk about who can make the adjustments when these teams play for the second time and then the third time and potentially a fourth time. And that's coaching. And we'll see that play out over the next 6 weeks.
We talk about the short turnarounds for, ACU and Tarleton State. What is the short turnaround like for the broadcaster, right? Do you go back to the notes from the previous matchup? Do you save the notes from the previous matchup and work back from there?
Well, we're working on it. It's going fast. A lot of stats to update and a lot of things to look through. Who had new season highs, career highs, all that type of stuff. Shout out to Luke White at ACU. Shout out to Ryan Pickens at Utah Valley. They're making my job pretty easy. They've done a lot of research and have really set up shop for us to have a successful broadcast on Thursday. Was fortunate to kind of work ahead since Utah Valley hasn't played since Saturday. Got a lot of prep work done for them Sunday leading into Monday before transitioning back to ACU and Tarleton. But yeah, it's a busy evening tonight to prep for Thursday, and then we'll do it again on Friday to prep for Saturday.
Okay, so now we kind of have to talk about the news that came out yesterday. The WAC sued Utah Valley for failure to pay the exit fees, and kind of some of the things from a media perspective that entails. First and foremost being no Utah Valley broadcasts out of Orem on the ESPN platform. For those of us on the women's side of the ledger, right, that's going to be really tough because the WAC only has one full-time radio play-by-play voice in Clayton Neville from Tarleton State.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's the way I understand it. Again, I'm very limited in knowledge on this, but the way I understand it is, no ESPN broadcast coming out of Orem until something might be resolved. But we still have the opportunity here as the home broadcast in Abilene to broadcast games that include Utah Valley. But it makes it tough from a publicity standpoint. You're right. Like ACU does not have a traveling radio broadcast for women's basketball right now. So that's a game that will be difficult to find other than live stats on the internet. But that's the way I understand it. Until something is resolved between the conference and Utah Valley, no broadcast coming out of Orem for sure.
And then that obviously, with 6, you run into the question of how do you bracket 6. I was talking to Kyle McDonald last night, and he thought you still went with the double bye. You would still go with the double bye for 1 and 2. Have 3 and 6, 4 and 5 play each other on Thursday. It basically just makes the tournament 1 day shorter. If this isn't resolved by the time we get to Vegas.
If I'm correct, the 6 versus 7 are a play-in game and into the quarterfinals. Is that right?
On the original bracket, yes.
Yeah, so I could see them eliminating that 6 versus 7, 6 seed versus 7 seed, and just the 6 seed move in and play the 3 in the quarters. And then the 4 and the 5, and they move into the semis versus the 1 and the 2. That seems like the most logical explanation for that if that plays out over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think if this still isn't resolved by the time we get to Vegas, you still have to protect the 1 and 2 because at the start of the year you advertised a double bye for those teams.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of teams are playing for that. I don't think you can change that. I don't think the WAC wants to change that. I think they want to reward those teams who have put a body of work together over the course of 2.5 months in WAC play. So I don't see a drastic change to the bracket other than if we get to that point, they would eliminate that 6 seed versus 7 seed.
As we kind of turn the page and go into the second half of the season, what is it now, 4.5 weeks to go, March 7th being the regular season finale on a Saturday afternoon. Who is one team that you think could, pull themselves up by their bootstraps and maybe surprise some people second half. I mean, Utah Valley, that 5-game losing streak after beating ACU at the UCCU Center, I think they're first and foremost on that list. And the scary thing for Tarleton State is just how close they are to like a 16-17 win season at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think Utah Valley, I'm a little surprised by the 5-game losing streak by Utah Valley. I think their upside is more than that. So I think they're dangerous in the second half. And you're right on Tarleton. I'll go back to the stat that you referenced where we've had 12 matchups who have played twice, and 8 of those 12, the margin of victory is tighter. For Tarleton, they've played 4 of those matchups where they've played somebody twice. And in all 4, they're plus the second time they've played, meaning the first time they played ACU, they lost by 5. The second time they lost by 3, so they're +2. They've played 4 of those, and they're on the plus side of all 4 of those, which tells me that experience is playing out. Bill Brock's coaching and the adjustments he's making the second time they play teams are working. Last night, even with a limited roster, they only lost by 1 possession. If it's a team that gets healthy with Bill Brock as their head coach and the experience they're gaining, Tarleton scares me down the stretch. I mean, they're 5-5. They've only got 8 left. But I think that's a team that is trending in the right direction. And with what Lou Bear's doing on the inside, she's a game changer, 6'6". I'd put my money on Tarleton on that question.
I mean, and at 5-5, if Tarleton State can put together a decent streak here in the next couple of weeks, who knows? They could legitimately get to the 2 seed.
They could. They could. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but I think it's pretty top heavy as far as home games in this second half, too. A lot of teams will have to come to Stephenville, which is not an easy travel trip for one. And then playing Tarleton, too, that's going to be difficult. I could see that. I could see Tarleton State getting on a hot streak and being right in the mix.
So, with CBU at 1 loss at the 9-game mark, do we think that the winner of the regular season will have less than or greater than 3 losses?
Ooh, I can see, less than, greater than. Can I take 3? Is that an option? Can I say 15-3? I could see 15-3 being that number, maybe 14-4, somewhere in there, but
not much more than that.
What's that?
Not much more than.
No. I think 14-4 at worst would be that number. I know California Baptist still has 2 ACU Abilene trips. I know they still play Southern Utah twice. So the top 3 teams will still have to duke it out. And then you throw in, again, the Tarletons of the world, the Utah Valleys of the world who can beat anybody on any night. The parity in this league has been just absolutely fantastic to me. And, 15-3, 14-4, I think is something to be really proud of. And a WAC champion, nothing. 14-4 is plenty to be proud of if that's a WAC championship.
Yeah. As we kind of wind down here, I want to throw one number at you that I've been keeping an eye on. It's the dominance of the home teams so far in conference play. With ACU winning last night, that's 23-10 for home teams. I don't know that I expected the number to be that skewed for the home teams.
Yeah, I agree. Playing really well. I think part of that, one is, the arenas and the fan bases that help there, the home court advantage, no doubt. I think the travel in the WAC can be difficult, and sometimes there's so many things going on when you travel that the game kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Sometimes that's minimal, but again, I think just the parity of the league throughout. And then teams playing on their home floor. I think there's a plus side to all of that for sure. And every team's defending the home court pretty well. And I think we'll continue to see a lot of that throughout the next 6 weeks.
Who is one player that, across the conference that you're going to keep an eye on to make a second half impact? Maybe somebody that hasn't seen as many minutes in the first half that will start to work their way into rotation as we work through these last 4 weeks.
Oh, man, you put me on the spot here. I love it. So going back to Southern Utah, I think what Brooklyn Feely is doing has been impressive. I think, what you're going to get with Chambers and Urick will be there. Can Feely be consistent as that third player she has been? If she continues to do that, I think you'll see a lot of noise out of them. I love Chloe Lemon coming off the bench. I know she was preseason all WAC, but now coming off the bench, and she's one that can catch fire in a hurry. And then we'll see down the stretch. I don't know if Alexis Reinders, what she did at Tarleton, we'll see that a lot. I think she got a lot of minutes last night just because of some injury and illness. But what she did last night, is that something that we'll see out of Tarleton State that can make a difference over the course of the next 8 games for them. And then, even here at ACU, you mentioned Riley Groman. I think she's got a chance to exceed some minutes, elevate some minutes, and continue to increase her point production for ACU as well.
All right. Andy Penney, voice of the ACU women's basketball team, thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday morning. It'll be Utah Valley at ACU and Moody Coliseum with a 6 p.m. Central tip-off on ESPN Plus tomorrow night. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thanks, Gerald. Appreciate all you do for the WAC.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow WAC Hoops Nation on all your favorite social media platforms.